part of this meeting focused on what can happen in the future and what's being planned now. So with that, I am going to stop and turn it over to Anneka. Come on up. And while she's coming up, they'll change the slides. I will tell you that we're recording this, so you will be able to see your recording soon. The church is very kind, and I should have said this sooner. Thank you so much, the congregation here at Epic Life. They're so generous with this space, and we appreciate that very much. As soon as they get us the file from tonight, we will go ahead and post it on our YouTube and send out an email to say it's available. But for that reason, we do need to use the microphones. So they will use them up here. I will have it over here in this area. We know it's a little awkward. If you want to ask a question, if you can come over here, we can try and translate it up to them for you. Susan, our vice president, thank you. If you're a person who doesn't want to talk in front of other people, you can send an email to our, whoops, it's not the same slide. You can send an email to sbd.mpac@gmail, and she's tracking them, and we'll read it out during this meeting. So feel free to use that too. And I'm going to emphasize this before I step off, and again at the end. Our speaker for September is Mayor Katie Wilson, and then in October we have the city attorney, Erica Evans. So we have work to do this summer, and then we'll have the mayor here to talk about things in September. So Anneka, you are on.
Hey everyone, is this one on? No. How about now? Nope. Ooh, now it is. Okay, please hold. Okay, never mind. How's the noise level? Kind of too loud? Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Anneka Olson. I work for the City of Seattle in the Office of Planning and Community Development.
Hi, I'm Jordan Hoy. I'm a transportation planner in the Project Development Division at SDOT. And we also have, don't put it that way.
Don't put it here? Okay. Hi, my name is Jenna Park. I'm with the Department of Neighborhoods, and I'm the Community Engagement Lead for Seattle Public Utilities, Aurora Avenue Project.
So this is the team that's going to be speaking with you tonight about the work that Katie just talked about, which is really about what is the long-term community vision for the transformation of Aurora Avenue. I was able to attend the walk on Saturday and heard from a lot of folks about your desire for immediate action, and we absolutely understand that you all have questions tonight about that. And I just, as Katie said, we're not the team that can answer those questions, but we do want to be in partnership with all of you to understand what you care about in this neighborhood, your concerns, and what your vision for the future is. And so that's why we're really here tonight, is to start that conversation and how we can work together as we forge a future vision for this corridor and the neighborhoods along it. As you heard, we're all from different departments, and believe it or not, that's important because we are really working cross-departmentally at the City of Seattle to really think about how can we deliver change to this corridor. And also, how do we retain the things that you all really appreciate and value in this corridor? I think there's a slide deck that I'm hoping will come up behind me. Is that true? Yep, okay. I just got the thumbs up from the sound guy, or the AV person. Let's see. And I know the screen is a little small, so I think it's not this presentation, it's blue. The first slide is blue, if that helps. Okay, well, while they pull that up, we're gonna talk today about the different projects that we're doing that here we go, that will influence what the future of North Aurora feels and looks like, and how it serves community. So the first one you'll hear about, first I'll do a little groundwork, and then you'll hear from Jordan about SDOT's work, Seattle Department of Transportation's work, to transform the roadway infrastructure. And then you'll hear from Jenna on SPU's work to change or consolidate utilities, drainage and wastewater utilities under the Aurora corridor. And then I'll talk a little bit about the work that we're doing at the Office of Planning and Community Development to develop a community action plan that really looks holistically at the future of the corridor and how we can work together as city and community to get there. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, you can't see that at all, but I'm going to use it as my notes. Next slide, please. So there's been a long history of community advocacy on this corridor, as I don't need to tell this room that, but we know that that's been true for a long time. For the last couple of years, SDOT and SPU have been working on early infrastructure planning to try to understand the drainage and wastewater and transportation infrastructure needs in the corridor. As they've started that work, they really have recognized that there's a broader need here, a broader conversation around what is, as I said, the holistic kind of future of vision of the corridor. So that's where my office, OPCD, has gotten involved. And so that's what's driving a lot of this work. And community, as I said, is really going to need to be part of that. So next slide, please. So one of the first things that we've been doing is really scanning past outreach to community to try to understand what you've already told us. So we're not starting from scratch as we begin this work. We know you've been sharing your thoughts with us for a long time. So these are some of the different projects that we scanned. This represents over 11,000 public comments that we've received over the last 10 years. And so we're using that to guide how are we launching this work, how are we working with folks going forward. Next slide, please. And some of the key things that we've heard about are transportation safety on Aurora, the desire for Aurora to feel more like a neighborhood and not just a corridor that folks speed through, a need for improved community safety, a desire for more gathering spaces, and a sort of sense of place on the corridor. And some also wanting to make sure that we're not losing or displacing the things that make Aurora what it is. Next slide, please. So the work that we're doing together cross-departmentally is called the North Aurora Initiative, and this is really about having a coordinated focus on the North Aurora corridor, so that's from 80th to 145th and surrounding communities. And then it's also about working with communities to deliver those street and utilities investments, doing that long-term visioning, and then also delivering some what we call short-term improvements, but when we say short-term, we mean in the next 2 to 3 years. So just to set that stage, and we'll talk a little bit more on the next slide about the timeline. Next slide, please. Actually, the slide after this. So I'll talk a little bit about this. I already talked about this, but hopefully this is helpful. I'm a visual person, so that North Aurora Initiative comprises the work of a lot of these different departments, those of us who are standing on stage here, and then a lot of other departments at the city as well. Okay, this is probably really hard to see, but and actually, Jordan, do you want to speak to this slide in terms of the SDOT timeline work?
Sure, absolutely. So in partnership with SBU, SDOT is conducting a large capital project on the corridor. And so you'll see we are currently in planning phase 2. Starting in 2022, we started planning phase 1. And so we're taking what we learned from that phase and building off of it for this next phase, which will ultimately inform the capital project. We recognize the need for safety and mobility improvements along Aurora now while we're planning out this larger project. So you'll also see ongoing, we have our near-term mobility and safety improvements in partnership with Transit and our Vision Zero program.
Thanks. Okay, and actually I'm going to pass it back to you because I think the next, or actually I'll speak to some of the OPCD work. So as you can see, this work is multi-year, and also we want to get it right. So that's part of the reason for that. Over the next year and a half, we're doing a community action plan, and the goal is really to align what is the vision that we document in that community action plan with the decisions that get made about the future infrastructure. So I'll pass it back to Jordan to talk more about that project.
Great, thank you, Anneka. All right, so this next slide should show, if you could change to the next slide, should have SDOT's work along the Aurora corridor. Great, thank you. So SDOT's work along Aurora corridor, our Aurora Ave project is from the tunnel at Roy Street all the way up to city limits at 145th Street. And within there, we could have we could categorize our work into 3 categories. So the first being the corridor planning study, which I am supporting as a transportation planner. And so the goal of the corridor study is to create a community-driven design vision for Aurora Avenue North and develop a plan to guide future investments on the corridor. So we expect planning to take 2 more years for phase 2, our second and final phase of the planning study. During this time, we will refine design concepts, complete additional technical analysis, and work with community members and our partner agencies with the goal to develop one draft plan to move forward into design development and construction. I touched upon this in the previous slide, but SDOT is also doing work on the corridor right now. So that fits within the near-term safety and mobility category. Aurora Ave is a priority for safety and transit reliability improvements. And so while we plan for the future, we are working to make this street safer and easier for everyone to use it now, making it more comfortable and accessible for people walking and rolling, reducing crashes for all road users by focusing safety improvements at high frequent collision locations. And we are also improving bus service so it's more dependable and convenient. So you may have seen, these are already in place to help manage extra traffic during the I-5 lane closures. We partner with King County Metro to extend bus lane hours on Aurora Avenue North. And now they operate 24/7 with new bus-only signs installed from North 38th Street to North 115th Street. And so the capital project will be informed by our corridor planning study, which is ongoing. Once planning is complete, design and implementation of major improvements to the corridor will be delivered in phases over time. Many sections of Aurora, as you know, need basic infrastructure improvements, including sidewalks for comfort, safety, and ease of access, better lighting for improved visibility, safer, more accessible street crossings for people walking and rolling, updated drainage to prevent water accumulation, which our colleague Jenna will speak to a little bit further. And so for the remainder of the planning should take place for the next 2 years, and we anticipate the first phase of design starting in 2028 with construction as early as 2031. And so the next slide will speak a little more about the near-term safety improvements. I'm not sure where they went on the slide, but all of this information is on our project webpage, so you're welcome to reference that for more detail. But in summary, we're looking at recurring crash patterns along the corridor and doing some near-term, thank you. Thanks so much. Doing some near-term safety improvements through our Vision Zero team. And so they're leading that in parallel with the planning effort that I'm a part of. So within the first package of near-term improvements, there are several improvements that have already been implemented and several more approved by WashDOT and plan to be implemented soon, including a new signal, which is under construction currently at North 137th Street. And then Vision Zero has also started identifying and designing the next package of improvements for future implementation. And so, next slide, please. I mentioned that we launched phase 1 of the planning study in 2022. And so in collaboration with community and informed by community input, we came up with 4 design concepts for the future of the corridor. And these were focused on transportation modality. So there's a concept called the walkable boulevard, which reallocates space for wider continuous sidewalks. There's also center running bus lanes along the corridor to support the Rapid Ride E-Line. We looked at a bicycle connection on corridor as one of the concepts. And then also we looked at a concept that maintained all of the vehicle capacity, so all the existing lanes for general purpose traffic on the corridor. And so we worked in tandem with community and gathered that input, and we're building off of that for phase 2. So in this next phase of the planning study, we will work with community and our agency partners to develop one preferred design for the corridor. We are bringing on our planning and design consultant as well as an outreach consultant. And our scope includes a more detailed traffic analysis to better understand and communicate the trade-offs associated with the concepts that I just mentioned, reducing capacity on the corridor potentially to make more significant improvements for people walking, biking, and transit. And so this will include an analysis of potential network impacts, looking at where vehicles might divert and what mitigation might be needed. This is a high priority for WSDOT as well as SDOT. SBU is partnering with us, as I mentioned, to continue their planning work for the stormwater and sewer design, considering phasing options. We will look closer at areas of the corridor that will require unique design solutions because of the constraints in those segments, including the Aurora Bridge and segments along Woodland Park. We will continue to conduct our inclusive community engagement efforts, including standing up a community advisory group that will bring together diverse perspectives to work toward a unified vision and support concurrent planning efforts. We will complete our alternatives analysis to identify the preferred corridor design, including a detailed phasing and environmental permitting strategy. And then these 10% designs and cost estimates will, the hope is to have those transition smoothly into a phased capital project through design and construction. So now I'll pass it over to Jenna to speak a little bit more about the SBU scope of the work.
Thanks, Jordan. So Jordan talked a lot about like the surface improvements, what's going to be, the improvements that will be happening above ground. I'm going to be talking about the things that are happening underground. Like the above ground challenges are a little bit more obvious. The underground challenges are not as obvious. So Aurora Avenue North runs down the middle of the Densmore Basin, which is a drainage area from shoreline to Green Lake. This area has a high concentration of drainage and flooding problems, drainage and sewer problems. There are large system gaps. So 2 miles of Aurora Avenue North has no storm drains, and that results in poor drainage and flooding on the streets. There are capacity risks, and what that means is that currently the pipes are super undersized. They're too small for the amount of drainage that occurs on Aurora Avenue North, resulting in flooding in homes, sewer overflows. And so, through the improvements, we're hoping to upsize, we will upsize the pipes under Aurora Avenue North. There are also a lot of pipes under private property. And so when things go wrong, which is not very often, but it does happen, it's really challenging to fix those problems. So we want to drain most of the drainage and some of the sewer pipes under Aurora Avenue North to prevent that problem. Next slide. So the impacts, there's a lot of impacts to water quality in Licton Springs Creek, Green Lake, and Lake Union. So with the drainage and sewer improvements, we want to redirect that stormwater away from all those water bodies. And doing that, the habitats, water quality will be improved in those water bodies nearby. Also, there's a lot potential downstream impacts, meaning that what we do up here on Aurora Avenue North will potentially affect areas like University District and down in Green Lake. So we are doing further study to make sure that what we do on Aurora does not impact negatively downstream. So by addressing these risks and challenges, the project will allow for easier growth on Aurora Avenue. Currently, because of the constraints of the sewer and drainage system, growth and new construction is very challenging. We're partnering with SDOT on design and timelines. Without this collaboration, this would have been a really difficult thing to do with such large infrastructure improvements. So we've already started this work. In 2025, last year, Seattle Public Utilities, we completed a concept drainage plan. So pretty much new drainage from 145th down to 80th Avenue. And there and a significant sewer improvements as well. It's really hard to see. Oh, sorry, go back to the other slide. It's really hard to see, but the extent of the new drainage lines is pretty much, if you see that bright blue line on there, it's going from 80th to 145th. So it's pretty much running down all of Aurora Avenue North. And the sewer improvements are less, but pretty significant as well. So from 2026 to 2028, as Jordan was saying, that we're going to work closely with SDOT to design the improvements together and also align our timelines and also match the phasing. So we are not disrupting the community. We really, like Jordan was saying, construction is planned for 2031, and we really want to make sure that we are including community in our decisions that we make. And also, we really want to make sure that we are minimizing the impacts to not only businesses, but residents and just the community members and everybody that uses Aurora Avenue North. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenna. Okay, thank you all. I'm going to talk a little bit about the community action plan. How's my level here? Still good? Okay, great. So I'm talk about a little bit about the community action plan and then wrap up, and then I think we'll have a few minutes for questions, and then let you all get on to the rest of the agenda tonight. So the community action plan, maybe I'll just start with why do an action plan? And the reason is really because the infrastructure work that you just heard about is going to be very transformative. And we really need to have a vision that guides all the stuff that goes around that infrastructure. So things like if there's new development, what does it look like? How wide are the sidewalks? That's the infrastructure piece. But then if there's a new building built, what is the relationship of that new building to that sidewalk? What kinds of uses are in that building, right? So those are the kinds of things that we'll be looking at. Also thinking about things related to community facilities and services. So things like community centers, libraries, those kinds of public facilities. Those are the kinds of things we'll be thinking about. Are there things that are missing now that in the long term we need to be thinking about and planning for the future? How do we make sure that the small businesses that we appreciate can stay while we also think about future diverse businesses and businesses that might serve resident needs better? So that's the kind of holistic view that we're hoping to take through this community action plan. And the reason we do a plan is because it really helps get everybody, both within the city, all of our different agency partners and community and all the community-based organizations that accomplish a lot, on the same page about what do we need to do to be rowing in the same direction. So it's that high-level vision, and then what are our goals, and then what are the specific actions that we're going to take to really achieve those goals. So it's a really important piece of making sure that we're moving towards the future that we all want. The other thing that we're doing, and I mentioned this at the top of the meeting, is that we looked at a lot of past public feedback. We're going to continue to do public feedback. I'll talk in a couple slides about some very soon upcoming opportunities for you all to share feedback. But with all of that review of past public feedback, we identified some key things, key focus areas that we know are important to community. And you can go to the next slide. So these are things that we've already heard about are important, and we want to make sure we're paying special focus to as we do this planning work. So one of them is really how are we engaging our business community, and how are we making sure that the businesses along Aurora are working together, and how do we support them in working together as this infrastructure investment is happening in the next several years. So that's one thing that we're focused on. We're also focused on what is a community safety strategy, and how can we be planning for the future right now and into the future to ensure that safety is at the center of the conversation, and I know that's important to the folks in the room tonight. And then also, how are we creating a sense of place and places for community to gather, to build connections with each other, and I think that's a big part of safety as well. So how do we, kind of create and celebrate community, and then how do we support community-directed implementation ideas that you have, and how do we support you in realizing those things in your neighborhoods? So those are some of the key focus areas. Next slide, please. Oh, I think I already spoke to this, but this is just an example of a community action plan that we did several years ago in our office that has yielded, I think, some really good examples of what happens when we all plan together, and really we can realize some great things that are harder if we don't do this early planning work. Okay, so we've talked a lot about how we want to work with you and why we're here tonight, and why we're taking up your time on a Wednesday evening. So the reason is because we need you. We need to work together. And we have some specific ways that we're doing that. So we have a couple of kickoff events. Our first one was last week here in Licton Springs. The next one is this Saturday. Actually, you can go to the next slide. We're calling it a pop-in party. It's a drop-in open house style event. We have a lot of different tabling partners who will be there, community organizations, city departments. We also have some participatory art. We have a lot of opportunities for kids' activities. And the goal for this is really to bring community together and hear from you about what is your vision for the future. So I set some flyers. Please grab one as you leave. Please tell your neighbors. And please come out on Saturday. It's at Bitter Lake Community Center, 11 to 1:30. So that's one key way to be involved. We also have an online survey. I also left some flyers with a link with a QR code to a website. We have a story map that talks a little bit about the past, present, and future of Aurora and how you all can be involved in it. And then also, as I mentioned, that survey. I skipped over some of the upcoming spring engagements. One of the big ones is Jordan talked about already is the community advisory group that SDOT's putting together. And then we're gonna have a lot more. It's not just a couple of events. We're gonna be continuing to do this engagement, and we hope that we can work with community partners to make this engagement happen going forward. So, okay, I think this is time for us to stop talking. Last thing is just, please do sign up for a mailing list. This QR code goes there. Please stay in touch. Please come to the event. And we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. I think we have about 10 minutes for questions, 5 or 10 minutes.
Let's see if we've got some
Okay.
questions.
Okay.
Do we have any emails? No? Any questions? Yes, sir. Oh, I'm not giving it up.
So Jordan, you talked about road safety. On the way here, I saw a distraction problem. There was a really hot prostitute on the side of the road with very little clothing. What are you going to do about that distracted driving problem?
You know, I think that we tried to be clear up front, that the folks here to talk about this part, we get the mayor's office next, we're going to go into that. They are here to talk to us about what the options are for the road. So we're going to go ahead and transition on to any other questions about planning for the road itself. I think Leon, did you have a question?
How secure is your funding?
Great question. How secure is their funding?
To speak to SDOT's funding, we have a combination of local levy funds, state and federal, and the planning phase is fully funded, and as well as design phase. And the intention is to use our funding to pursue additional funding opportunities. So the planning study phase 2 will be looking at a plan for implementation, including the full funding package for the project once we have a better grasp of the full corridor design.
Okay. I think folks are, maybe we do have a couple. Go ahead and just shout your question.
Infrastructure and the changes along Aurora, has anything there been planned regarding the various neighborhood offshoot streets and the fact that right now there's open access for some streets have open access to the neighborhood shooting straight off Aurora going into developments and housing?
Do you want to speak to that, or?
So,
Yeah.
One of the opportunities in our partnership with OPCD is that we're able to take a more holistic look at the corridor project's impact in the broader neighborhood. And so a part of the OPCD Community Action Plan will be looking at network connectivity as well as how the project will fit into the larger network within neighborhoods. And so, yes, that's something that we will be looking at as a part of phase 2.
Yes, sir. Go ahead and shout it and I'll repeat it. So I'll just repeat that quickly, which is to say the question is, are they really asking for community input, or has a decision already been made on a design and they're just rolling it out to try and convince us of what that is? Also, the question is who, well, partly who's in charge generally of the whole project and who are the parties?
I hear your comment, and those are serious concerns, and I do want to speak to them. I want to say that ultimately this is a state facility, so whatever design we land on for the preferred vision for the corridor will ultimately have to be signed off by WSDOT. So we're working very closely with WSDOT and our other agency partners. At this point, we are at a draft concept level. So we have 4 alternative concepts or community ideas that we've presented through phase 1. And in phase 2, we'll be working with our community advisory group as well as through broader outreach to refine that into one design. So we have not landed on one preferred corridor design, and that is the intention of this next phase of the planning study.
One more, if we have one more. Oh, thank you. Can you come up here or shout to me and I'll repeat it?
Have you determined how impactful all these changes will be to traffic, to walkers, to bussers, as you continue to roll out the city?
The question is, how impactful will this be to the walkers and bikers and traffic and just on all levels? What work have you done to evaluate that?
In this next phase, in phase 2, we'll be doing a deeper analysis of all of that information, of the traffic analysis, as well as other metrics we'll be using to evaluate each alternative, including transit ridership, including pedestrian and bicycle safety, and overall corridor function. So that is something that we're going to be taking a deeper dive into in this next phase of work.
Okay, I think we'll wrap up and start to move on to our next speaker, but I will call out, am I correct that what I kind of heard is that, first of all, to get involved, people can come to the community information sessions. You should know that all of these slides for all of our speakers tonight are already out in our minutes folder, so if you can't see them, don't worry, you can access them after the meeting, they're already there. And I also heard there's a WSDOT aspect to this, so the state will have to buy in and also provide some funding, is that correct?
Yep.
Yes.
And I think that we should note that Senator Jesse Solomon and Representative Lauren Davis are both here in the room. If you put your hands up again so people can see you, it would be great to buttonhole them if you have any opinions about how this should be supported. So please remember, we probably want to get involved now, early, and stay involved at the local and state level.
Great. Thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for
guys.
having us. I know you have a busy agenda, so really appreciate you hearing us tonight. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Alison Holcomb, the Public Safety Operations Manager for the Mayor's Office, City of Seattle. She was part of the walk on Saturday. She has agreed to give an overview. We were both on the walk. She's going to talk about what they heard and take your questions, and we'll go from there. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Katie. Again, Alison Holcomb with Mayor Wilson's office. I'm going to try to keep my remarks really short because I do want to give you as much time as possible to ask me questions. So on the walk on Saturday, we had Chief Barnes there, Deputy Mayor Brian Surratt was there, colleagues from the mayor's office who work with Department of Transportation, Public Utilities, mainly Department of Transportation, because we were really talking about what road closures could look like. There were so many people there, really appreciate it. I want to thank Katie, first of all, for encouraging us to put this walk together. Hear you tonight, heard you earlier. The mayor's office needs to schedule a meeting. My understanding is that that is in the works. I don't have the community relations piece of the work in the mayor's office, but I understand that many of you leaders in the community organizations have been in contact with the mayor's office, and we are getting something scheduled so that we can continue this conversation. This is not a one and done conversation. This is an ongoing conversation. What we've been focusing on in the past week since that walk has been about getting some action underway so that we have something to report out to you, to receive feedback on, and to continue iterating until we fix this problem. But real quick, I just want to say the three things that I heard on the walk, and I think that the deputy mayor heard on the walk, are exhaustion. You know, that's physical exhaustion, emotional exhaustion, mental exhaustion. There were powerful stories that were shared with us, and very grateful to the individual residents in the neighborhood that were willing to come forward and share their very deeply moving stories. Thank you so much for that. We needed to hear it, and we also appreciate what a toll it is for you to have to continue telling these stories and see, to disbelief I heard, see that why has the problem not been solved? To Katie's point, this has been going on in Aurora literally for decades. Why haven't city leaders been able to solve the problem? Hear that loud and clear. And that's why we know, because it has been going on for decades and because you're exhausted and it's not fair that you're continuing to have to deal with this, we're just gonna dig in and keep working and see what we can do. The last thing that I heard was resolve, and it was incredibly inspiring. You already have your own saved, you know, this is our neighborhood walk scheduled for this Saturday night. So clearly, even though you're exhausted, you're not giving up. You're not giving up on your families and your loved ones. You're not giving up on your neighbors. You're not giving up on your neighborhood. And so we owe it to you to respect and support you and to show up and do the work alongside you. So huge amounts of gratitude for all of you, honestly. So I mentioned action items. What SDOT has done so far is already created graphs of what it could, where are the current barriers, and providing us a physical picture of the neighborhood that we're talking about, and what would a proposed closure look like, the most sort of aggressive version of closing streets that we can imagine look like in this area. With that information, we're now vetting that with fire, right? Because we need to make sure that we know what kind of impact is it going to have on us to close streets for fire trucks to be able to maneuver, to get to fires, and also really importantly for ambulances. As you, I'm sure know, with every cardiac event, every second really counts in terms of whether or not you're gonna survive that heart attack. So we're just consulting with fire, bringing them in, letting them help us to figure out what we can do long-term that will strike the right balance in all forms of community safety. And the third thing that we're doing is working very closely with people you're gonna hear from later after me, the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, the Seattle City Attorney's Office, and of course the North Precinct. And Assistant Chief Rob Brown is here, who sees all of the precincts and knows, this is something else I heard from Katie on Saturday, that the work that we do in North Aurora is work that we're gonna do across the city, right? I very much respect the fact that a lot of you are showing up to do this work not out of only self-interest, and there's nothing wrong with having self-interest in survival, but you're also doing it because other neighborhoods that are suffering, like Rainier Beach and South Seattle, like Belltown, like the CID, Chinatown International District, deserve the same attention to the gun violence issues that are going on in their communities. And again, thank you for your generosity and your support and your energy in supporting that work. So in our collaborations with the prosecutors and the police, we're looking at a couple of things. Obviously, we need to step up patrols. We need a surge of visible patrol cars because that's something that's going to disrupt the trafficking that's happening. It's going to deter business from happening in the place. So just plain old-fashioned visibility of patrols needs to happen and happen soon. Some of that is already underway. And we also, as you all know, we're rebuilding our police force. So good news is by the end of this year, we should be up to 1,250 across the department. But you know, as officers are coming in, we've got to train them up and get them in the field, get them their field training time, and then we can put more patrols out. But in the meantime, I'm working with Chief Barnes to figure out, okay, we told you not to bust the budget, and also show me what it would cost to do a surge with the resources that we have available now, knowing that that's probably going to require us to dip into overtime, right? But we're working it. We're working that. The second thing that police are doing is really focusing on their good old-fashioned investigative skills. And I think King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office has handed out some really great materials that kind of describe the work that goes into establishing probable cause to get the worst of the worst off the streets. So we want the traffickers gone. We want the people that are hurting people, that are violent, that are exploiting children, Yes, children, women. We want the exploiters gone. And to do that, it takes shoe leather. It takes really skilled investigative work so that you're putting together a strong package of evidence that you can hand over to our felony prosecutors so they can put these people behind bars. So that is the second thing that they're really focused on at SPD. And then the third thing is something that we want to do in partnership with the service providers and advocates already working in this area, which is the idea of law enforcement assisted diversion. You may have heard about that primarily in the context of drug offenses. We can do that in North Aurora. We can also do it for people that are being trafficked. And so we're looking at that as an additional partnership to help disrupt the supply side of this equation, is to help get the people who are being trafficked off the streets. I'm gonna stop there because I already talked longer than I wanted to, and I wanna let you ask questions.
Some kind of come towards the front to use the mic. So who has a question? Come on over, Jeff. See, everybody knows my face. At least I know yours. I'll hold it.
Oh, it's the hair. Tuesday of last week, you and I were both at a public safety committee meeting, and we heard Rob Saka talk about the need to turn on the closed circuit cameras before there is notice of a credible threat. And in today's newspaper, I see that Chairman Bob Kettle wrote a letter to the mayor on the same subject, with the same point of view. And I just want to go on record saying that I agree with Saka and I agree with the chairman. Waiting for a credible threat is too long. You work on the assumption that the intelligence is good enough to detect real threats and good enough not to twig on false alarms. And I don't believe that that can be done. The physics of the problem says you can't do it. So I would please go back and tell Mayor, normally I agree with her. On this issue, I think she's wrong.
Thank you. One of the things that I really respect about the opportunity to work in this mayor's administration, I didn't work on Mayor Wilson's campaign, didn't know her at all until my first day of orientation in January. What I have been consistently impressed with is how thoughtful she is and how she listens to all perspectives. And so thank you for sharing that perspective. You're not the only one that has that perspective, certainly, as we know from the Seattle Times article. So I can assure you that Mayor Wilson is listening carefully, and I'll leave it at that.
It's difficult for me to not assume a tolerance policy, because I just can't believe that if semi-naked women were marching up and down Mercer Street on Queen Anne Avenue, that would happen. That she would be there for more than 5 minutes. There has got to be something going on. The way the laws are enforced, or the way the way the laws are enforced, it's got to be different in different neighborhoods, and I don't see that being addressed at all.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I have driven up and down Aurora a few times in the last few weeks just to see it for myself. Completely understand that feeling. I think it's justified, obviously, when you're seeing that activity happening, to think nobody actually cares that this is happening. And again, I can say it's been going on for decades. That's not an excuse for why it's continuing. Exactly. Totally agree with you. And we're not there yet. The strategies that I laid out for you about what the mayor is working with the police and the prosecutors to address are, we're going to bring this on. We're going to try. We're going to try to change the complexion of Aurora, honestly.
The strategy actually was working. And you guys have, not you, but the administration has stopped the strategy. And so there was this open order and soda laws, or things that went into effect. The previous city attorney was prosecuting, and the strategy was working. So you might have driven down the road a couple times. For 18 years, I've been walking up and down the road, okay? Brought my kids. You know the story, I don't need to tell them. I have video right now that the business owner is afraid to share because he'll be retaliated against, right? And it shows a woman getting dragged out into the street while cars pass, right? Drug off the street. Soap and soda law would actually solve that, and has solved it, because over the time we saw that going down, the last administration, okay? The crime had gone down, the pimps were leaving, the prostitution was going down. It was a really good trajectory. Immediately, when January came on, crime started going up. And it was really immediate. And it's just, the correlation is very, very clear. And so for some reason, I don't know where the city attorney is, or the mayor. I'm glad you're here, but they should be here. Aurora Avenue is the main bloodline of this city. And what happens in the North Seattle is pumped in and out of the city. And there's a reason that 105th and Aurora has been ignored for years. But the last 3 or 4 years, something has happened. And I would really encourage you to go back and look at that and analyze it and stop doing stupid, like silly things of not prosecuting people and having crime criminals on the street. I would assume if the mayor or the city attorney's daughter was laying in her crib up on the street over here on 103rd and had a bullet whiz by her head through the wall, there'd be something different happening. And that's not, because those people are not here, nothing's happening. And so, 18 years on the street, all right? During COVID, 170 women. FIFA is coming, we're gonna have 500 women out here on the street. I'm not blaming them, there's a lot going on here, we understand that, but there's nothing the police department can do with 500 women while they're patrolling downtown. And so, it's gonna be a really serious problem, and I don't believe the mayor's office has a clue what's happening here. And until she's on the ground and shaking hands with people whose children are in harm's way, there's not much that's going to happen. And I appreciate that you're here. I really do. I know it's not your fault. But this is more serious than you guys, than the administration is taking a look at this. And a lot of it is the city attorney. The previous city attorney was doing something, and it was obvious. It immediately was turned off.
Thank you, Pastor Keith.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. A lot of great information, a lot of great perspectives. There's only one thing that I kind of want to comment on. Something that you said that I think is really important is it's about the messaging. Humans don't behave because they understand what the law is. Humans behave because they think they understand what the law is. And so what I'm taking away from what you're saying is that if we talk as though we don't care, if we talk as though we're consenting to certain activities, then more of that will happen. I saw this a lot when I was back doing cannabis work, and we got a medical marijuana law, and everybody thought that that meant you could open up a shop and put a green neon cross on it. None of that was legal, but it didn't matter to the entrepreneurs who were willing to take the risk, right? And so that's what you're seeing here. What I will say about soap and soda orders is they're fine, but you have to first get convicted, and then you get an order that says stay out of here, and then you have to get arrested for being in that. And so the amount of resources that go into that, I want those resources to just get the traffickers off the street, get the people who are being trafficked help. I don't necessarily want to tie up our police and prosecutors with enforcing a piece of paper that a judge handed out, because it's a misdemeanor, it's not a felony, it's not getting anybody help. But the message that we're not enforcing any sex offense laws, which is what people are hearing, even if that's not what you're saying, is an important one. I do think it's very important that we get our messaging right and we let people know this is no longer okay, it's not gonna be tolerated. Our police are gonna be on the street. Seeing police officers is one of the most powerful things that we can do to shut this stuff down.
Agreed, there's just not enough.
I agreed. I'm with you on that, 100%.
I want to, in case some of you aren't familiar with Jake, I just want to say thank you, Jake. You've sent such a message to the city. We've worked so hard on this and in such a thoughtful and meaningful way. So thank you. Go ahead and ask your question or make your, I'll let you hold it.
Great, thank you, Katie. Yeah, like I say, I'm famous for all the wrong reasons. I know you, Allison. I appreciate you. Thank you for coming out. What I'd like to talk about is both lack of urgency and a lack of leadership. You show up, the mayor hasn't shown up at all. Where is she? When I first met you, it was because my house got shot, but I'd been emailing the mayor since October of last year. Before she was even our mayor, I was letting her know what was going on Aurora Avenue. I continued to keep her abreast of all the shootings, all the horrible things that happen all the time in our neighborhood. Then there was a shooting at my house, right in front of my house, that hit my house right above where my 6-week-old was sleeping. Then, a week later, my neighbor Dakota's house got hit with the 40-round shooting, and it went through his bedroom window. Then neighbors closed the streets. So about 2 weeks after my house got hit and my baby could have gotten killed, that's when I got to meet you. And thanks for picking up the phone. I do appreciate that fact. I do think you're showing leadership, but you're also not in charge of this city. Since then, we went on a walk together. We walked our neighborhood. We notably walked to 102nd, a road that had been closed and a road that had experienced 0 shootings in the neighborhood while that road was closed. At the mayor's direction, that road was opened. Less than 48 hours after the mayor opened that road, there was a shooting 3 blocks in the neighborhood. What do you guys have to say about that? Like, you literally opened the road to the pimps, and then there was immediately a shooting. And we still haven't seen any action, and we've only seen like an Instagram post from the mayor. That's wildly unacceptable.
Yeah, I hear you. I do. The shooting that you're talking about is the one at 102nd and Evansdale?
That's correct.
Yeah. I was pained when I saw that
It was
hit my
50 feet
cell
from my
phone.
daycare.
Yeah. Yep. I hear you. I mean, anything that I say in response to that, it's going to be factual, but it's going to sound like I'm negating the very real experience of the fact that, yeah, somebody drove into that intersection and fired off a gun again, right? And I can say, what do? Do we just like put a giant bubble all around the neighborhood? And I know that's not what you're asking for. And I know we don't have any reason, we don't have any justification to be asking you for more patience. We can't. I hear the exhaustion of the patients. All that I can tell you is that we really are trying to work the problem of getting these roads closed in a way that is effective, as you pointed out, and also we just make sure that we're not somehow creating collateral consequences that we haven't at least thought through. And in the meantime, we're very hopeful that having more police officers in the area will push, it will help facilitate the road closure through the appearance of more patrol cars. It might not work. There may be more gunfire. And all I can tell you is that the mayor's here for it, not physically here at this moment, but she is here for it. She has told us all that this is a priority for her and she wants us showing up and doing this work. She will be in community soon. You all know what a mayor's schedule is like, or you can imagine. It doesn't mean that she's not prioritizing it. It's why she's getting us here, the ones that are actually going to be doing the work.
It does mean that she's not prioritizing it because she's not here.
I hear you. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, the last thing I can say to you, Jake, is, I'm really glad that you got an email to Councilmember Kettle on May 7th, which was the email that got to me when I finally got to see what was going on. And thank you for continuing the conversation with me. And thank you for continuing to show up, because what you experienced was really horrific. And I don't think I knew the depth of that until I got to hear you tell your story Saturday at the walk. And so, full humility, thank you so much. Appreciate it, and give me a chance. Give me a chance.
We have an emailed question.
This is from Megan. She said, or asked, will the mayor's office do something to stop the 1% to 2% budget cuts to our police department in light of our current recourse needs?
It's a great question. I mean, I am assuming that you all know that we're looking at, I guess the latest I heard, a $180 million budget deficit this year. We don't have any sources of progressive revenue that we're looking at to fill that gap. And the city budget office has asked, the mayor has asked all departments to provide budget scenarios for cuts. All departments. We're in the early stages of negotiating what's actually going to happen, right? The mayor is still committed to fully staffing back up SPD. They're ahead of schedule slightly, which is great. And we have to look at making some hard choices about what are the things that we can trade off. What are the services that we might no longer be able to provide to communities? And those are going to be hard conversations. Those conversations are going to be happening throughout the summer and into the fall. And so I just encourage all of you to keep doing exactly what you're doing right now, and especially to be reaching out to your city council members and to the mayor's office to really be engaged in the conversation about where the dollars should be going and where you think we have room to pull back if we're going to continue to fund other services at the same or increased levels in the future.
One thing I'd like to actually call out before we go further too, one of the things that strikes me is that it often feels like everybody thinks that Aurora is a problem for North Seattle. Aurora is a regional problem. It is not, it happens to be here. People come from far and wide to do business on that. It's well known, they came from Las Vegas during COVID. It was horrific. It's not just something that the people in North Seattle should be trying to fight. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. That's why I'm saying thank you so much, because I know the work that you're doing is not just for yourselves, but it's for the entire city. And in fact, it's for Bellevue, because as you'll see in the materials that the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office shared this evening, this Bellevue investigation that of an individual who's engaged in trafficking, commercial trafficking activities here in Aurora. This is the Blade. This is a shopping district for some people. Yeah, let's be plain about that. And yes, people are traveling not only from all over the country for this, but they are going to be traveling from all over the world. And what I can tell you about FIFA is, yes, the city is very aware of the heightened risk. And in fact, FIFA planners have been planning, they have known for years that this is part of the problem that we're gonna have to be managing when the World Cup starts, right? This is endemic to FIFA wherever it goes in the world. The sex trafficking trade follows it.
Sorry, so this is not just a question, but also giving a little bit of context. You are holding the mic, so you can remove it at any time. No, I meant Katie here. So I guess first I want to give a little context for my question. In 2018, Sesta passed. Sometime after that, Backpages got closed, Craigslist stopped having certain kinds of personal ads, etc. SPD closed a couple of hotels, motels, whatever, on Aurora. With each of those things, we see a shift where more sex work gets pushed out on Aurora. It used to be that a lot of the women working out there were locals who were, broke, drug issues, whatever the problems they had in their life, they were out there, they weren't pimps. So while the sex work on the street has been there for decades and decades, the rise in shootings has not, and the pimp wars have not. That is genuinely new. We tried passing the soap law, that ran into issues. I know that's complicated. The city has also tried working with REST and The More We Love, which are a couple organizations that try to help women get out of sex work. I assume not just women, but mostly, right? That's also difficult, it's very costly. you drive by, people scatter, people come back, and you see a trend where shootings that were happening around 1 a.m. now pushed a little further back towards like 3 or 4 a.m. That sort of thing. So that's got a cost to it. There's a certain amount of effectiveness. One thing that we saw work pretty well is a neighbor that lived at 101st and Aurora put up a fancy camera after a bunch of shootings happened there, captured 3 shootings within a 2-week period, chopped it up, sent it out to all the news outlets. You all. Right? Also sent it out to basically every city official they can get an email for. And then suddenly, literally after months of trying stuff, the same morning, not even the next day, not even the next week, SDOT came in and blocked off 101st. That really helped in that particular area, especially because we can see in the footage, they start shooting, they drive in the neighborhood, or at that apartment in particular, they park in an alley, wait for somebody to come by, ambush them. So that's why that particular intersection is especially bad. The point about all this is we've tried lots of stuff. Certain things are more effective, certain things are more expensive. Certain things like stop lot, especially the original draft, which thankfully was amended, but also punish some of the wrong people, creates more paperwork, like we were saying. Sorry for all that context. So I guess the question is, why can't we do barriers? Or something else?
Why can't we do? Okay, yeah, I know. I'm digesting it. I was like just making sure that I got all the context. And the question is, why can't we do barriers?
The question is, why can't we do barriers? Because they're cheap, they're effective.
Yeah.
They do not get at the underlying problem like funding the rest of the more love does.
Yeah.
But with the trade-offs that we have, even if you're far right, you like it because there's no shootings. Also, if you're far left, I guess, but you also like it if you're far left because it's not going after anyone in particular. It seems politically viable. It seems cheap. We don't have to block all streets because we leave arterials open. We know that SPD, fire department, et cetera, can still get into the neighborhood just like the neighbors. It's inconvenient, but when you're weighing the gunshots and things, making that territory less profitable and making it harder to shoot and run in.
How about if we get some closure on this one by saying, no, that's good.
Yes.
You said this is being studied. What's the timeline?
Great question. So I'm trying to remember when we have our next meeting. I think it might be Friday, but it could be a little bit later. But we're talking weeks of making a decision about where barriers can go. Weeks at the most, yeah. So yes, it's not why not barriers, it's where, and just making sure that we're balancing everything so that, yes, not only can people that are responding to a heart attack get into the residential area, but can also get back out and get to a hospital within a reasonable amount of time to minimize the risk that we're doing more harm than good, which is an awful thing to say in the context of gunfire. I want to make that clear. But we have a responsibility to make sure we're considering all the potential risks to the neighborhood.
Hi, my question is, the barriers will work, but then you're putting all the traffic on Aurora, and when you put them on one side of Aurora, all of a sudden the hookers are on my side of the road. I'm by condoms every day in my yard, my parking spots, and it's just, they keep moving it over. It's like Greenwood. Greenwood has crime as high as we do on Aurora, it's not as noted in the news. But here's the thing, almost on a weekly basis, someone's trying to open my front door. I've had people come up and take patio furniture and try to break my windows open. And then they come and they get arrested and they're out in 2 days. Then you come back again and you see at Aurora on Arco, nothing's done. The drug addicts and the drug dealers get arrested and they're back. They're back like 2 days later. Kids cannot even walk to go to school. Literally, I have to follow my grandson around. He's going to be 13. And you have to follow them around. Because they do not understand how dangerous Aurora is. Oops, sorry. He's banned from taking the e-bus because so much crime. I've had to yell at people to not do their drugs next to me while I'm on the bus. And I have been accosted by people just in the neighborhood. I mean, it is scary. And I've had to swap, in my block, maybe 3 times in the last few years. And I mean, hundreds of things happen. They're catching, but they're not catching. These people keep getting out. We need to change the law on how the drugs are processed. Because if you take like downtown, a guy lived in a little shelter next to the courthouse. He kicked a dog, he went to jail for a couple hours, got out and killed somebody the next day. How do you account for that? Because the guy had a track record, and these drug dealers have a track record.
And I can't even let my grandson walk, you know? It's like I have to meet him everywhere. We need to work on that. And the barriers aren't helping because they're on my side. And I live near the graveyard. So they're always down there. And I'm always fighting everything. These kids need to work on getting rid of letting them out all the time.
Yeah, thank you. And hooray that we have state representatives and senators here, and I see a state senator who wants the mic. So I think what you're pointing out is how important it is that this is not just police, not just prosecutors, but it also needs to be the state laws. We have to look at those. Are there changes that we can make to state laws that provide, right. So it's a whole, it's a whole system. And while that's complicated, I thought this is where you're gonna go with the question about barriers, is while it's complicated, human beings are complicated. The illicit market is complicated. It's like water around rocks. Like everything we do, it's gonna move. And that just means that we have to eat our Wheaties and drink our Gatorade because we're in this for the long haul and we need to keep tweaking things and stick with it until we hit, the most responsive policy strategies that we can implement. So we're here for the long haul. I think we need to sprint on a few things right now, and we all need to realize this is going to be a marathon. Yeah.
And I think at this point, let's transition. Senator Solomon has asked to talk on. If you want to have a seat, do you have a question?
Yeah, actually, I have a question. So, Alison, good to see you.
Good to see you,
we
Senator.
Go back a long time. So I represent a lot of North Aurora, all the way up through Shoreline, Edmonds, Linwood. But I'm here also talking as a person who lives in Shoreline near Aurora, who's raising a child who sees all this, who has a father who lives 3 blocks off of Aurora. And what I'm trying to understand is what policies, if you go up to Shoreline on Aurora, you won't see this. Okay, there's something that happens at 145th, the city boundary. And it changes over and it's kind of a different world. But when I took my son to daycare in Seattle, off Lake City Way, off the Fred Meyer that closed, I literally saw people take a couch, put it in the street on the sidewalk, and smoke fentanyl in the middle of the day. I took pictures of it, and they looked at me like I'm a jerk. What is it that happens in Seattle that allows that to happen that doesn't happen in Shoreline?
I imagine there are a lot of contributing factors. We've already talked about the fact that we have a police department that lost a lot of staff, right? So again, there's the issue of presence. But I look at things like drugs and sex trafficking as really being about illicit markets. And so where does the demand and where does the supply, where do they figure out that they need to go to connect with each other to do their trade, right? I think that we have to be realistic and look at that. There are environmental things that we can look at with respect to certain blocks, et cetera. All kinds of potential contributing factors need to be examined. I don't think that there is a silver bullet to any of this. Sorry for that horrible metaphor. But there's not one solution. There's not one thing that's happening that's causing one location to have a different experience of crime than another location. We need to look at it all. And we need to try to attack each of the things that we see and figure out what's the right mix again, right? This is the wicked problem issue, right? Wicked problems are very complicated. They're not there's not one cause to them generally, and there's generally not one solution. And you have to keep being able to iterate and keep working at it until you get to a place where you at least have much better outcomes than we're having right now.
I know we could keep going, I do, but we have other speakers and I think they have some important things to add. We do appreciate you being here, we absolutely do. we just need the leadership of the mayor. We need to see her face here and to see that she actually cares. And she'll be here in September.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Senator Solomon. Next up, we are going to have the Criminal Division Chief of the Seattle City Attorney's Office, Jenna Robert, who is going to speak to their role working with folks around Aurora. We'll get a microphone up there.
Thank you, Council President Dwyer. Spend a minute to get this right. How's this? Okay, okay, thank you. So thank you all for being here. I really appreciate all of you coming out. My name is Jenna Robert, and I am the Criminal Division Chief of the Seattle City Attorney's Office. I first joined the Seattle City Attorney's Office in 2009, and I was in that office for over a decade, and I was in every single unit of the Criminal Division working as a line-level prosecutor. Most recently, I was at the Attorney General's office working as an Assistant Attorney General and was a section chief there under Attorney General Brown, and have come back now with Erica Evans to be the Criminal Division Chief. Oftentimes, I think you people here in this meeting hear from our North Precinct liaison, Megan Westfall. I'm sure many of you know Megan and have met her. Megan has done wonderful work working at the City Attorney's Office for a very long time and is a wealth of information. Megan will continue to be the North Precinct liaison. She was just unable to be here today. Also with me today is our Chief of Staff for the City Attorney's Office, Dan Nolte. And I want to first, because I know there's a lot of new faces in this meeting, have just a brief explanation of the City Attorney's Office. We have about 220 employees at the City Attorney's. 2/3 of the office is a civil division, and 1/3 is the division that I lead, the criminal division. We only prosecute misdemeanors in the City Attorney's Office. We have no jurisdiction over felonies, but we do partner and work very closely with the King County Prosecutor's Office. As many of you can imagine, a lot of the defendants we see in misdemeanor court are also in felony court. So we work very closely on making sure that referrals are going smoothly back and forth and coordinating our efforts. SPD refers to my office anywhere from 10,000 to 15,000 referrals a year. And that's, as you can imagine, quite a volume of cases that we're constantly managing. When this administration came on, we discovered that we had a 5,000 case backlog that we needed to make decisions on from the previous administration. And we've been working through that as well as balancing the new cases coming in. Our most serious crimes that we prosecute in the City Attorney's Office are our domestic violence crimes, our driving while under the influence crimes, and assaults. We also do prosecute sex buying, which under the code is called sexual exploitation, but we do not prosecute sex trafficking. That is the line between the felony and the misdemeanor. With that background, I really want to dive into why I think many of you are here today, what I've heard in all the questions, what's happening on Aurora. It's completely unacceptable and it cannot be tolerated. I myself am a North Seattle resident. I've lived here for almost 20 years. I drive on Aurora often. I drive with my family, and it is completely unacceptable. I and my prosecutors on my team come to work every day because we know that you deserve safety in your neighborhoods, that you deserve to have your families feel safe. And I, as a mom, and a mom to 2 children who attend public school in North Seattle, It's my job as a mom to make sure that I'm providing safety for my children. And as a prosecutor, my number one priority is public safety. This administration aims to deliver outcome-driven public safety policies that are going to change behavior and not merely be performative actions. You deserve policies that work and that are going to reduce crime. Between City Attorney Anneka Evans and myself, we have over 20 years working as career prosecutors, and that's how we come to this work. In electing City Attorney Evans, you have elected a prosecutor for the first time as the head of the City Attorney's Office for 16 years. She's the first person who has been a prosecutor in 16 years in that office. Between City Attorney Evans and I, we have worked at the Seattle City Attorney's Office, we've worked at the King County Prosecutor's Office, the Department of Justice, King County Prosecutor's Office, and the Attorney General's Office. And we know that no single agency is going to solve this problem alone. We need to build a coordinated strategy, and that's what we are here to do. For the city attorney's part, we are working in tandem with the King County Prosecutor's Office, City Council, the mayor, and SPD on sharing strategies that are going to work. And first, we're going to be focusing on firearm violence and how we can expand a tool that's called the Extreme Risk Protection Order, known as ERPOs. We're working on getting a dedicated attorney who will have a sole focus of taking guns from people on Aurora. That's never been done before in this office, and we are hoping to get that as a funded prosecutor position to specifically work on firearm violence. We've asked for that funding with the mayor's office, and we would ask for your support in that. Thank you. In addition to ERPOs, another key tool to addressing the city's problematic properties around Aurora is the chronic nuisance law. That law provides that if a property has 3 criminal referrals within 12 months, we can work to shut that property down. In the last 5 years, 4 motels on Aurora were closed, and a problematic business that I'm sure many of you are aware of, the Dollhouse, was able to be, the current property was able to be closed. Right now it's closed, and I believe it's going to be under new ownership. That was using the chronic nuisance tool. Right now we're in active conversations with another business who has come to the attention through the chronic nuisance law, and if they don't get into compliance, they will face that same closure. We are asking that you do continue to call 911 because that is how the chronic nuisance law works. When there are reports of criminal activity at a business, that's how we're able to use that tool. There's other approaches that we're working on in collaboration with Councilmember Juarez, but those are still under development. Already, there's been a number of people who have talked about SOAP orders. SOAP orders are imposed on Johns if they're caught trying to buy sex. SOAP zones and SOAP orders are not new. As you heard me say, I joined this office in 2009. We were using SOAP orders back then. I myself, as a line-level prosecutor, have asked for SOAP orders. I've been involved in being in front of the court saying someone has violated an order. But in all reality, the only time those violations came back up to the court's attention was when someone had committed a new crime. And they were being punished for that new crime. That still is happening. My office is still filing charges against those sex buyers. As we said, it's sexual exploitation. We are holding sex buyers accountable, and we will continue to do that. Additionally, judges are still able to issue SOAP orders, and officers are able to still arrest someone who has a SOAP order. But in all reality, there have been 0 cases of SOAP order violations in the 20 months since council passed the law in 2024. And that's 0 prosecutions under former city attorney Ann Davisson and 0 under this administration. SOAP is not an effective tool. What is an effective tool is ERPOs. ERPOs have been used by my office in collaboration with King County in the domestic violence realm, and we have taken many, many, many guns off the streets. So what we're asking for, as I said, is your support in getting tools that work, orders that actually take guns off the street, not orders that end up in 0 prosecutions. You have Erica's and my commitment that we are dedicated to outcome-driven policy solutions. And you have 20+ years of criminal prosecution experience behind that. We are coming to this with a coordinated effort, and we will not stop. We are committed to public safety on North Aurora. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
There's been a lot of talk of how to solve the gun problem. All you have to do is have a 1-year mandatory for anyone of any age carrying concealed without a permit. It would reduce the gun crime by 2/3. Massachusetts is the example. Massachusetts has an 18-month mandatory. They have the same gun restrictions we have, which don't work. They have income that's about the same as ours. Gun violence is related to income. That's all you have to do is get the state legislature to pass a law like that.
Thank you.
I'm glad to hear you say that you want to hold sex buyers accountable. What we've actually seen in our neighborhoods is that there really hasn't been much accountability for sex buyers, as somebody mentioned. I mean, it's happening in front of our homes, in front of our children. We come out in the morning and there are used condoms and disgusting wet wipes all over the place. And I actually spoke to a cop specifically about this. He came out when I called because it was happening right in front of my house. And what I heard is that there really are no grounds for him to arrest a John because it can't be proven. It's 2 consensual adults. Unless they observe the money changing hands or otherwise they just say, oh, this is my girlfriend. So I want to know how you're going to address that issue. I'd also like to hear a little bit about the no loitering law was removed in 2020. And I've lived in Greenwood for 25 years. And I've never seen anything like the last 5 or so, particularly the last couple. But yeah. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms.
Thank you. So what you're talking about with filing charges against sexual exploitation, it is very hard to charge those cases. And I'm not going to dispute what the officer said. Really, when those cases actually get to a jury and get convicted, they are undercover operations. And I think that goes to a bit of what Alison Holcomb from the mayor's office was talking about, the number of resources that go into being able to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt to a Seattle jury on sexual exploitation is difficult. And I think what you're hearing from a lot of leaders is that we would like to be able to spend those resources on actually going after the sex traffickers, because that is going to have a much bigger impact. And that is where that line draws, though, that my office doesn't prosecute sex traffickers. We don't have jurisdiction to do so. That is the King County Prosecutor's Office. So as you're hearing about Seattle Police have, limited resources, that is something that they're definitely facing of, are they going to do a bunch of undercover stings to be able to have, minimal prosecutions on sex buyers versus being able to spend those resources going after the people that are shooting off guns, that are trafficking people, that are causing much bigger impact. No, and that's, sorry if that came off at all. No, absolutely not. The Johns are not tolerated, and if we do have a fileable case referred to our office, we do file those charges. And I want to be clear too, those charges are not eligible for diversion. When you've heard people talk about trying to get the LEAD program back up here, the diversion program, that is really talking about addressing people that are being trafficked or selling sex. That's not for the people that are buying sex. There is no diversion for that, and our office will file those charges. It just takes a lot of SPD resources to be able to prove those cases.
I know there are more questions, but we're already at 8:30, and I do want Casey McNerthney to also come up. We do appreciate you being here. We'll have you or someone else back to spend more time with us to talk more about all of this. So thank you very much for being here. And again, we have the city attorney here in October at NPAC. So thank you. Could you bring up the map for Casey's slide, please? Casey McNerthney is with the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office.
Thanks everybody for having us out. We want to say that we hear you. What you might have gotten a copy of, we ran out of them. There was about 100 that went around, are the exact case numbers of the 427 cases that we filed since 2024. That's clearly not enough because there's still a problem. And Jake, who was here, we hear you. I can't imagine what it would be like to have to duck and hope that your toddler's not hit. We're doing what we can with our disproportionate resources. And that's not meant to be a slam at the county council. They have very difficult decisions too. If you'd like to see what our budget request was, we'll send you that exactly. Rather than have a spokesperson talk, Alex Voorhees is here. She's the senior deputy prosecutor who has filed arguably the most important of those felony cases, including the more than 100 that we filed this year. I think it's 163 or something, but the numbers don't matter. Alex can talk about what it's like to be in court, asking for pimps to be held accountable, what the sentencing guidelines are like, what the differences are between Class A and Class C felony, the sentencing ranges, the real meat of what I think you want to hear, and what we're doing about it. Even the case that she filed yesterday that was investigated by Bellevue Police but has a direct tie to Aurora, and the reasons why about 80% of the human trafficking cases that we have as felonies across King County have ties to Aurora. Before I hand it over to Alex, if any of you have a question about an incident number, even if we don't have it with our office and you want to know what's going on, my phone number is cell phone 206-247-2446. You can call me directly, even if it's late at night or early in the morning. If you're there with your toddlers and you want to know what the hell's going on about this, wherever the case is, if it's with our office, we'll tell you exactly what we do or are not able to do with it because of the legal restrictions. But if you want to know where it is in the process, we can help you figure that out too.
Thanks, Casey. And, oh wow, these lights are bright. I actually didn't make prepared remarks for this evening. I hadn't planned on being a speaker, but I'm glad to be here with you all. I was also out on Saturday morning for the walk along, and I heard your stories. I heard from a teenage girl who talked about worrying about her sisters walking on Aurora. I am a senior deputy prosecutor with the King County Prosecutor's Office. I've been with the office since 2002. I've worked at felony level cases since 2003, 2004. I've worked across the office in our domestic violence units, our mainstream violent crimes units that handle things like shootings, stabbings, robberies. I've also worked in our homicide unit, and for the last 5 years, I have focused my work entirely on prosecuting cases that involve CSEC, commercial sex exploitation, and human trafficking. There are a number of felony level offenses that we charge depending on the facts and the probable cause that is determined during the course of an investigation. We take these crimes incredibly seriously. There are 2 dedicated prosecutors in our office, and that is all we do. There's me for the north end of the county, and my coworker Brayla handles the cases for the south end of the county. We are very busy. Human trafficking, commercial sexual exploitation is the second biggest illicit financial industry in the country. Estimates worldwide are between $150 and $250 billion a year in sex trafficking. There is money to be made at the mercy of others, at the exploitation of others. And that exploitation does not only come from pimps and traffickers, that exploitation also happens at the hands of buyers. We have robust felony laws to deal with pimps and traffickers. Our standard range sentences when someone is convicted of human trafficking, promoting commercial sexual abuse of a minor, are comparable to those at the felony level. Those cases are incredibly challenging. They require immense time and resources, both from our offices and from the law enforcement agencies. The discovery, that means the police reports and video and social media reports and all of the things that we gather to prosecute these cases, are very often as voluminous as my coworkers who handle homicide cases. They are also incredibly challenging to take to trial because oftentimes it requires that we ask a survivor to come and do one of the hardest things in their life. To come into a courtroom and sit across the table on the witness stand from the person who caused them irreparable harm. The average age of entry into commercial sex work is between 12 and 15 years old. Many never get out. The mortality rate for individuals that engage in commercial sex work is 200 times that of the average population. Individuals that are involved in commercial sex work suffer from PTSD at rates higher than combat veterans. We're dealing with an incredibly complex population of survivor victims who often come from our most marginalized communities, disproportionately BIPOC. Other communities that are particularly vulnerable include the LGBTQ+ community. And we don't see it as often, but boys and young men are also trafficked. As I make my remarks tonight, I'm probably going to be referring to girls and women. That's what you all are seeing out on Aurora, and that is the vast majority of the trafficking cases that we see and we handle in our office. But please don't take away that this doesn't happen to others in our community as well. We have a range of charges that we can file against pimps and traffickers, ranging from human trafficking, promoting commercial sexual abuse of a minor, promoting prostitution in the first degree, and promoting prostitution in the second degree. And what differentiates those charges sometimes is the age of the victim and the level of force, fraud, or coercion that is used against the individual that is being trafficked. We also have fairly robust laws in Washington state with respect to purchasing sex from minors. It is a Class B felony to purchase sex from a minor. Now remember what I told you, that the average age of entry is between 12 and 15 years old. Now, say a young woman is 17 and 364 days old. If you are a man that purchases sex from that person, you are subject to a Class B felony. The day that young person turns 18, you are subject to a simple misdemeanor. It is a greater crime in the state of Washington to steal a candy bar from the AM/PM mini mart than it is to purchase sex from someone that's being exploited. Let that sink in. Every time we prosecute a pimp or trafficker, they're replaced by another. And the reason that they are replaced by another is because there is money to be made. Why is there money to be made? Because, let's be honest, men are willing to pay to purchase another human being's body for their own sexual gratification. I'm not saying that women aren't ever buyers, but it is disproportionately men. And studies and statistics show that it is disproportionately men who come from privilege. We, in our office, handle cases where we work with undercover detectives posing as minors online and selling sex. And we've collected a lot of data through those cases. 71% of the men arrested in those cases are white men, compared to the disproportionate numbers of people from marginalized communities in our city, state, country that are subjected to commercial sexual exploitation. There are similar studies out of California and other jurisdictions where high percentages are income earners in the six figures, people with advanced degrees. Sex buyers come from a cross-section of our community. And we've worked with some of our partners in the legislature to try and get increased penalties for buyers. We haven't gotten much traction on that yet, but we're not going to quit. We are continuing to work. I see Rep. Davis out in the audience. She has been a stalwart supporter of ours in this. But the reason you see the violence on Aurora associated with the pimps and traffickers is because there's money to be made. And it's money to be made on the backs of young women and children in our community, and young women and children that are transported across a circuit around this country to engage in commercial sex work. I've rambled on for quite a while. Like I said, I didn't have prepared remarks for this evening, but I am happy to take a few questions. I know we're butting up on the end of our time, but I'm happy to stick around after and talk with people or answer if there's a handful of questions now.
If there's, go ahead, Rudy. Please. You can start talking on your way up, Rudy. What's your question?
Uh-oh.
Cameras on 100th of the shootout that took place east to west, and she said she had not. I've encouraged her to take a look at that camera footage, whether it's on or off. If they're on, she can look there to find the footage, and hopefully we can get those that were shooting caught and held accountable. We can talk about what we're going to hopefully do, or we can take action and find these shooters and get them off the street. I also said the license plate reader, and I think it was you that gave me the club for my truck. My truck was stolen, and the license plate reader found my truck at Northwest Hospital. So thank you. But that's my thing is somebody needs to look out for the mayor's office, and somebody needs to take a look at that footage because it's scary. Around it through the person's house, unacceptable.
And I think you were not here in the earlier part of the meeting when we focused more on that, so.
I can actually speak to that a little bit. I don't know that I've seen the actual footage that you're talking about, but I have handled gun crimes, and I've seen plenty of video of shootouts associated with the cases that I handle. But what I want to point out that this gentleman brought up is the importance of things like the real-time crime center cameras that are deployed on Aurora. And I understand that license plate readers are on a pause right now, but they are also a really valuable tool to investigators in these cases. We often identify suspects, or law enforcement identifies suspects and are able to bring cases to our office, whether it's gun crimes or prostitution. I actually have a handful of cases on my caseload right now that involve incredibly violent rapes of sex workers. And in every single one of those instances, it was a combination of the real-time crime center footage and license plate readers on patrol cars that got us to a point where we were able to get a license plate. Does the suspect match the person who's driving the car? Can the victim pick that person out of a montage? But it all comes back to, we had video footage of that young woman getting picked up along Aurora, and then we're able to trace that car and identify suspects.
We appreciate that. We knew this was going to run long, and again, we thank Epic Life for letting us do this. That was really powerful to know more about your role and what you experienced. So we thank you, Casey, and you both for that. Thank you very much. We'll
Thank you.
probably have you back to North Pack.
Certainly, I'd be glad to come back when we have more time and I can field more questions. Thanks so much, everybody. Stay safe, and we are working to protect your community.
Thank you. Actually, and oddly enough, Casey really does mean it. You can call him. Captain, you're a little later than normal, but we appreciate you being here, and it is your turn. Again, we have some flexibility, so go ahead and give us an update. Captain George Davisson from the North Precinct. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Again, Captain Davisson on the North Precinct. I've been working in this role now for about a year and a half. I got it January of 2005. I've been on the department for over 25 years. Anybody who's been to North Pack knows that I generally report out on stats because it's kind of my brief back, right? I just want you to know what we're seeing statistically, but I don't think that that's important as much as hearing you all tonight. So there are a couple of stats that I will bring up that I think are important to bring up tonight. One of those are the on-view stats. Trying to increase officer patrols out there. I can read those, but I think everybody else can read them too. So generally, these are the overall stats for the North Precinct. They're specific to the North Precinct. They give a year to date, and they give 28 days, the last 28 days. So you can see the last 28 days it shows in the North Precinct that crime stats are down, but not shootings. This does not report on shootings. We have that as a separate number. Our shots fired are up 8%, but they're all kind of concentrated right now in Aurora, as you all know. I think one of the things that we've been trying to do in the North Precinct is try to train up our officers to get them out to do more with what we have. Last week, we sent, I think, 7 to 10 officers to bike training as well as undercover school. So our officers are trying to get some training that we can use and utilize out here in the streets so that we're not just responding to 911 calls, we're actually doing proactive enforcement. That brings me to the stat that I wanted to report out on, which was our North Precinct on-view activity, trying to generate more officer presence, trying to get out there doing on-view activities. We have almost 1,000%, or not 1,000%, excuse me, 1,000 incident increase. We have 926 on-view increase in the North Precinct, which is a 13% increase in patrol. Officers getting out there doing more with what they have and not just answering the 911 calls. So I think that's really important to push out. I do hear you. I get your emails. I try to respond to them, not necessarily, especially when you email everybody. I email when they're directly to me, and I get back to you. Whether or not I send an officer out to talk to you, or I call you personally, or I go out and meet with you personally. I know several community members that I go out and I talk to, or I'll assign a sergeant, or I'll assign an officer to your specific problem so that they will go out and contact you. We also have project officers. We have one in the room tonight, Officer Cruzan, does a phenomenal job. He works on longer term projects and can actually go out and talk to you for a lot longer than, say, a 911 officer, an officer on patrol. I've been sitting over here listening to my officers going back and forth across the precinct. We have 39 square miles for just the North Precinct. It's massive, and about 250,000 residents, and our officers are out there going from one call to the next. Specifically today, we asked them to do a little bit more enforcement on Aurora as much as we could, and they got called away for a guy that was in the middle of the street, causing a disturbance, and ultimately got into a fight disturbance in the middle of the street. And the officers were torn away from that task to go deal with another task. So they're being torn in different directions all the time, and our follow-up units are just as spread out right now, and they're working as hard as they possibly can. And you've heard the calls for more officers, more resources, and with FIFA coming, it's just looking like there's more for us to do, right? And as FIFA games take place, we're going to have more officers working those events, especially on match day. I know Lieutenant Haynes and I, my ops lieutenant Garth Haynes, we are in charge of the first game. We're going to be the venue commanders for the first game, Belgium versus Egypt on the 15th. So with that, we'll have additional resources there. Regarding the response to Aurora, we've been having a lot of concentration of shootings in the 9800 block of Aurora and on Linden. We know that. We've been putting more officers in that area. Our Norton 91 car is a 2-officer car that's been dedicated to that area, trying to curb that violence right now and trying to be there as much as possible when they're not answering 911 calls. They're actually been dedicated there even during 911 calls right now. So with that, I'll turn it over because I know that we went fast with a lot of other speakers, so I will open it up to questions here.
Folks, what are your questions for the captain this week? If you want to come towards the front, that would be great. That way, we've got that lady first, and then, or actually, you haven't spoken yet, so that would be great. Thank you. That's gracious of you.
Hi. I've heard a lot of the speakers just pumping their own tires, talking about their experience, talking about how complicated it is, what they're going to do. But I haven't heard one person talk about what is actually happening, what the plan is for the World Cup in our neighborhood. Nobody has an answer. Nobody's even telling us what they're doing other than going to make the streets more beautiful. I don't give a shit about that. I care when my husband has to go to work at 4 a.m. and I make him call me when he leaves to make sure that he didn't die because his tires are being blown out by shots. We live on 96 in Linden, and it's wild. And all these people are talking about, oh, I did this, I did that, and that. But what are you doing right now? What's the plan? Where's the mayor? Where's the police chief? You said, or chief of police, you said October she's coming? That's crazy. It's June. The world, it starts now. Like, we don't know anything. It's just a whole bunch of lip service. And it's so frustrating.
So the captain can speak to what SDOT is doing.
Yeah, so what I was speaking with what we're doing with our patrol officers, we have our patrol resources that are answering 911 calls, and we're out on Aurora as much as possible right now. In addition to that, I mentioned the bike training, sending officers to the bike school. As our staffing had diminished, we lost our ability to put bikes on the streets. We are now able to do that. We have 10 bikes, I believe, that we have the ability to use. That doesn't necessarily mean that we can put that many officers out in patrol. Sending the bike officer or the officers to bike training last week allows us to put officers on Aurora. It's not going to be a daily basis where we're going to have people or the staffing to do so, but we're going to try to get officers out there at least once a week to be on patrol on bikes. I talked to a couple very proactive officers this afternoon, and they're very excited to do that because, in their own words, they love being on bikes. They get to do a lot more stuff. In addition, our officers have the ability to do undercover work. So sending them to our undercover school allows them to do plainclothes operations where they're sitting and watching things take place and then calling in other officers to make arrests. So that's some of the things that we're doing. In addition to that, we have our follow-up units that are doing support. We have our gun violence reduction unit that they have identified priority spots within the city of Seattle that are the most prolific for gun violence, which Aurora has been identified as that, and they are assigning a detective directly to those spots. So every case that happens in that area is assigned a detective and will be followed up on. So I know that Rudy has been in contact with me several times, and Andrew Steele Smith as well, and Jake. Thank you for sending the video. Thank you for sending that information. I don't hoard it. I immediately get it to our follow-up units so that they can follow up on that crime, try to identify the shooters, try to identify how we can get a hold of them. Some of the stats, and I'm not trying to toot our own horn, but I have just a list of things where our officers have gone out within minutes or within hours of getting a wanted bulletin and going and making arrests, which is phenomenal. The other day, they arrested within an hour and 52 minutes of me pushing out follow-up unit pushing out a bulletin saying that there's a male that's pushing out information of images of children, child sexual images. Pushed that bulletin out. Within an hour and 52 minutes, the officers had asked around, worked the street, and took that person into custody. Another bulletin was pressed out last week of a rape suspect that had rape, assault. The bulletin was pushed out. Within 2 hours, our officers went and located that person. So our officers are out trying to do the work, and our follow-up units are doing the best they can to support us as much as they can. That's just the gun violence reduction unit. In addition to that, we have our community response group that does support. I know our chief of police has mandated our SWAT team as well, and I've been hearing them on the radio. They're answering 911 calls in the north end when they're not on barricaded suspects or other warrant services or anything like that. They're out conducting patrol as well, which is super helpful to our patrol officers. In addition to that, we have our traffic enforcement. I reached out to them and I said, I need more traffic enforcement on Aurora. I hear it nonstop during the day. We have officers pulling over people on Aurora, trying to make some kind of impact there. So that's just some of the things that are going on. In addition to patrol, we have the resources and support coming behind us as well.
I just have to say, you guys are doing a phenomenal job. I don't care what people say because they don't see what goes on behind the work. You guys have to take sometimes 2 or 3 years to get the bigger drug dealer because you need to get to them to get enough evidence to stop the cycle.
Yes.
And I do understand that. And there's more, I do notice more police presence on Aurora. I work on Linden where my license plate has been stolen a couple times. And we have had to literally, they shot up Linden Avenue last summer. 22 cars were shot with bullet holes. Luckily mine was up the street. But it's the fact that you guys work behind the thing. Nobody sees that. And people are getting mad at you guys, but you really are working hard because I know I've worked in this area and I see all the stuff that you guys do. And I'm up and down Aurora all the time. I'm a photographer because I'm always up there. And I see, and I want to thank you guys because you guys don't get that credit. People are mad. I understand the drugs and the shootings and the gangs and the war church and everything. But at the same time, you guys can only do so much because the laws aren't on your side, a lot of them. They need to be on your side more where you can prosecute more because otherwise you're just putting someone away and then they're getting out in trouble.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I echo the gratitude because I spent a day with you guys and I see how much multitasking you guys do. So I really think we just don't have enough. And I just took the E-line after meeting with the mayor and I asked specifically, what are you doing? So I want to ask you, the North Precinct, how many more officers do we need to cover the geographic area? Because I don't think the city understands the vast disconnected North Seattle and how many more officers we need for violent crimes response time.
My answer would be as many as we could get, but I mean it's a tough answer, or it's a tough question to answer because at one point in time, I mean, the North Precinct is massive, right? There have been discussions for years and years and years about splitting it up and making it 2 precincts, one on the west side of the freeway, one on the east side of the freeway, with kind of the same kind of contingency of officers that you have currently at the North Precinct. So almost doubling what we have and splitting it into 2 precincts. That's me personally. You're asking a personal opinion. That's where I would see it.
That's a concrete sign, a measurement, so I appreciate it. That's what I'm going to fight for.
I appreciate that.
Hi, just rephrasing a question I didn't get to ask earlier.
Sure.
The SOAP bill that passed in September of 2020.
The what? I'm sorry.
The SOAP bill?
The SOAP bill, okay.
That passed in September 2024 gave provision for SPD to create specific training around it by April of 2025. And then all officers were supposed to be trained on it by January 1st, and it would be ready to go. Do you know, did that happen?
The first portion of the training happened, and the additional training has been ongoing. They're coming off as like e-learnings as well, and I don't know if there's a intention to do additional training on top of that, but e-learnings meaning we have the ability to log into our computer and watch training. That's one way that we get training. We also have training in person, things like that. But I know that at least one or two of the components have been completed, and I know that they're still working. I think that they're on phase one of like 4 different trainings that have to finish. So, but in addition to that, you know, the views of whether or not we can enforce it is a different component at this point in time.
Hi.
Hi.
This is my first time attending. We just bought a house in the area, so here I am. Thank you. After living here for 13 years, we finally got to buy a house, so it's very exciting. My question's a little left to center, but still I think really important. I've been a transit writer for 13 years. Both the neighborhood and rapid rides I've ridden, I've seen Metro police presence before COVID, and of course COVID happened and everything went to hell, including the buses. Is there plans, initiatives to bring those enforcements back on the transit to enforce people are paying, as well as enforcing rules are followed? I mean, my nose has been assaulted, I've been physically and verbally assaulted, and I'm sure I'm not the only one in this room. You know, and that along with, I'm sure it's connected to trafficking in some way, shape, or form. So
Sure.
is there any hopes that we could see more enforcement on our public transit in the future beyond the
Yeah, so I have to say that, I mean, it kind of sounds weird, but it's not our jurisdiction, meaning on the buses itself is King County. They operate the bus system as well as Sound Transit. So in order to, when you see the safety officers that ride the bus and then they get off and they clear out one of the bus stops and then they go up, that's all King County. So we request that enforcement when we see activity getting kind of crazy. We say, hey, we'd like more enforcement, and they will schedule it out because they have a lot of routes that they work. But that would be an answer specific to county to say, hey, do you have any more staffing coming? Is there an ability to put more people on those buses? So we do respond. Oftentimes we're the first responders on those because there's not necessarily a lot of King County officers in the area. When the buses are driving through our city, if something happens on the bus, we're usually the first ones to get there, and then we coordinate with King County on who's going to do the investigation.
Anything else you'd like to just add? Anything about FIFA?
No,
Any
you know,
last moments? Or?
I don't believe that we're allowed to
Gang
keep
database
track.
she's asking about.
Do you know anything about that? Sorry, my assistant chief, sorry to put him on the spot.
Yeah, no, we have not been putting that sort of information out there. We're not tracking gangs per se.
Yeah.
So, yes, that's not.
So we have our gun violence reduction unit because we're focusing on the people that have access to the weapons and not necessarily, the coordinated group, if there is one. We're focusing. Yeah, they're federal, and I can't speak to what they do. I can just speak to what we do. So they have a little bit more power than we do.
Anything else to add? Any comments about FIFA, which is looming on us?
I mean, FIFA, you're going to see a lot more people in town, right? I mean, every game brings a new wave of fan zones. I believe there's going to be one fan zone down in Ballard for one of the games. I know that there's several downtown in addition to the venue downtown. If you haven't been down to the stadium, there's a 10-foot tall fence around it now as part of the trying to keep people safe. I know Garth has been in it too. We've been in nonstop training for FIFA and all the different components of it, whether or not it's learning about crowd surge or learning about what kind of threat levels we have. for each game. The feds and also FIFA pushes out kind of information to us so that we know what we should be looking for and how to train for it. So we've been in trainings for a long time, and we just keep on going. And I have. Mm-hmm. I was answering this specific question, and I tried to answer the question to the best of my ability before, and I feel it. I understand. I mean, if we had more resources, we'd have them out there for sure. What was that?
No. I think that we've covered that. I understand your frustration, but I think the folks that have come before have kind of covered the different aspects of that, and we just have to keep talking.
Yeah. Other than that, I don't have anything else.
Thank you very much. We do appreciate you and your team. And as we always tell you, well, first of all, I hope this met some needs tonight. We knew it was going to have some challenges. Thank you for staying, those of you. Again, we at least wanted to try and provide some space where you express frustration. We know it, not all of you got to ask questions, and we apologize for that, but we have to keep moving. A couple things we like to say every time. First of all, please do keep reporting things. It is annoying, we know, but they did improve the online reporting system a year or so ago. It's working better, so please use it. They're data-driven. If you don't tell them it happened, then it didn't happen in the stats. So we need you to do that. Another reminder, NPAC does not meet in July and August, but that doesn't mean we completely go away, because that would be too boring to just go away and be in the garden all summer. But that's what I'm going to do. No, but we do keep an eye out, and we'll keep talking as a board about if there's any, ways we can help, and we will always be trying to figure out if there's new ways we can communicate and share information. But we will be back the first Wednesday in September with Mayor Katie Wilson here. Thank you again, Epic Life. And then in October, it will be on Zoom with the City Attorney, Anneka Evans. Thank you all. I do want to say, you guys have been the best crowd. So I don't know if she's still here, but what I told Alison in one of she's sick of hearing me, is you really could not find a better group of people to be trying to get your attention to work on something with you. If you read anything and you have seen these people speaking to the issues, they are speaking intelligently and thoughtfully and with data, and I am so impressed. And they're not just screaming, they're saying, this is it, this is what we want. You can't find a better group of people to work with you if you figure out how to do that, who will help make it happen. So thank you all very much. We appreciate you being here. Have a good evening.